Welcome to Microdose the Mind, where tiny doses create monumental shifts. We're your hosts, Brian Schwartz and Jeremy Wolf, and we're here to guide you through the fascinating world of microdosing, both in plant medicine and daily habits. Get ready to expand your mind and reshape your reality.
Hello, friends, family, great community, wonderful universe. We are back for another installment of Microdose the Mind. You know, as I do all this deep inner work and I peel back the layers of the onion, which is my mind, it never ceases to amaze me what I find underneath. And I've been on this journey now for 5 or 6 years, and I have been doing a lot of work on myself. But what I've come to realize as of late is the thing that I am missing in my own journey is community, right? It's building a community down where I am, where we can share what we've learned with others and really kind of spread the word and talk about things that have worked for ourselves and then those around us. So I thought it was fitting now to have on the show a good friend of ours, Josh Magro, who I recently had on the Good Neighbor podcast. He's with the Limitless Institute up in Orlando. I encourage you to check out that episode on the Good Neighbor podcast, Cooper City, with the Limitless Institute, to learn more about the work that he's doing. And then Brian is doing his own thing up there in Orlando, really on the path of the shaman. And I'm doing my own thing down here. And I thought it was fitting for us to join forces and really dig into some of the practical tools and things that have been working for us throughout our own journeys that we can share with you guys. So thanks everyone for joining us. Excited to get into this, guys. Josh, Brian, always a pleasure to see you, my brothers.
The pleasure's all mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome,
Thanks
Josh.
for setting this up, man.
Of course.
Thank you.
This is the mission, guys, right? We need to join forces and spread this vision far and wide to help as many people as possible. So I want to start there, right? With this idea of community that I alluded to. It's so important to have conversations like this. We live in a world right now where so many people are withdrawn from the outside world, right? With social media and devices, and we're all caught in the rat race. And there's so many folks out there that are struggling. So why don't we start off, Josh, talk a little bit about the work that you're doing in terms of building a community through the work. Start there. You still with us? Okay. Brian. I don't know where Josh went. I think he's frozen. He's frozen in time. All right. He's like Han Solo in Star Wars. He's frozen in carbonite.
It would be my pleasure, Mr. Wolf. It would be my pleasure.
Tell you've been on the path of the shaman. Talk about the community, right? What are you building up there in Orlando? What is the goal? What is the mission for you?
Absolutely. So when I started this journey in 2019, what I noticed in myself was that I was missing the brotherhood. I was missing the camaraderie. I was missing the masculine support. And during this time of my journey, I was deep into my initial ceremonies of ayahuasca. I was working with many different shamans from the indigenous tribes of the Amazon. And I was also working with Mr. Magro, Josh, as my therapist. And I really saw the power and lean on Josh, throughout my journey. And he was like the main masculine community support that I had at that time. And together we really saw just the power and the transformation possible, when you put together the plant medicine, the personal growth, the spirituality and the brotherhood, and that's when Josh and I decided to form our men's groups, the Manhood Transformation Retreats. And in doing that, we really began to grow a community of like-minded men that are here for one purpose, and that is to become the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I really feel like we're all mirrors with each other, so we piggyback off each other's journeys, our lessons. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and together, man, we are so powerful. I love that saying, we can only go so far alone, but when we're together in community, we can. The sky's the limit.
Absolutely, man. And I can speak to that, the sense of community from the recent men's group that I held, the first men's group, like seeing other brothers there, other men, and they're sincere gratitude and appreciation for making this happen and actually creating a space. Like it's been on so many of their minds, and they're just like in anything else in life, we get tied up, we chase shiny objects, and we don't do the work. So it's so important to have that community in place to, like you said, mirror among other like-minded folks out there. Josh, are you back with us?
I'm back. Yes, I reset my internet, so it should be good.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting the juxtaposition of us three here. Again, Brian doing the work with the spirituality and the shaman and all that stuff, and then Josh doing the type of work that you do, and then with what I'm kind of trying to do on my own down here. But Josh, for those that don't know, talk a little bit about the work that you do, just to kind of add some context.
Yeah, so I'm trained as a psychotherapist. So I do a lot of trauma work with couples. But my real love, my passion is doing group facilitation, like personal growth workshops, retreats, camps, things of that nature to help dive into the sort of human experience and understanding what makes us who we are, and helping people emerge from the shit that has happened in the past. So combining like neuroscience, psychology practices, and just like things I've learned along the way. Some of these practices that we've been talking about here, that we create some kind of container, some kind of community for us to come together in and heal. Because even as a therapist, like working one-on-one with someone, that's where the incremental changes happen. There's so much more power in community. There's so much more power in being able to see the sort of hall of mirrors that gets created when we sit with others, and that I can sort of project onto you. I can glean wisdom from your experience and vice versa. There's just something so much more compounding about those types of experiences that it's just like jet fuel in comparison to, just the tired sort of one incremental step at a time kind of process that individual work can often be.
Yeah, and we don't know what we don't know, and so that's why it's so important to do things like this, and then also build a community around this, because you learn so much from other people. Everybody has something special to bring to the equation, and that's one of the things that I've come to realize. The older I get, I just become more and more humble throughout life, and just realizing that every breath that we have is so unbelievably important and grateful, and it's absolutely incredible to be here. I'm so excited to be here and on this journey working with you two brothers. And the goal, I hope, is to have other people come into the fold and share their expertise and kind of pool together all these different modalities into one spot, one place, one resource where people can go to better their lives. I want to start with something that, for me, like, I spent most of my life letting externalities dictate my internal state. And what I've come to realize is that, 90%, if not more, starts internally. So I want to ask each of you why inner work is the starting point before trying to fix external circumstances.
Sure, I'll start. So what I've noticed is that when I'm unhappy inside, it reflects in my external world. If I'm judging myself, for example, I'm judging that outside world, right? If I'm loving myself, I'm loving the outside world. So the outside world, what I'm noticing, it mirrors back what's going on inside to me. And the more that I work on myself and I integrate these different parts of myself, and I really dive into my shadows, and I look at my fears, my strengths, my traumas, really just encompasses me as a man, right? The more that I can be integrated and grateful, the more that my external reality reflects that. I start attracting different kinds of people. The healthier I am, it seems like the healthier my community gets around me. And it's this wonderful tool of just growth, of just continuing to elevate, right? And then we also have the accountability part where, when I'm struggling, or if I'm off track, my brothers can step up and say, hey man, are you okay? Can I offer you some support? Here's what I'm noticing. And it adds more depth to my personal work. It adds more depth to my family, how I communicate and work with my daughter, with my fiance, with my clients. And I owe this all to the community that we built. And I really believe that I would not be the man I am today without Josh, without you, Jeremy, my best friend from college, and without the men that we continue to cultivate and call into the circle. You know, in every retreat we have, every workshop we do, it just gets more powerful. And I just get more pumped up to do this work because I see it working in my life. And then as it works in my life, it reflects in the people that I'm working with outside of myself.
Yeah, positive feedback loop. I've seen it, and I've seen it too. And I'm in awe. And like I've said before, I've been kind of like piggybacking on the work you've been doing up there. And then every time I come back into my life, I just get pulled back into this old bullshit, old routines, old habits. And I'm really becoming more cognizant now to try to like actually change my lifestyle in a meaningful way that will help me reprogram my mind and rewire my circuits and really lead me to where I want to go in life, which I feel like has been missing forever. I've been wandering around without a purpose, without an aim, without a mission. And I'm finally feeling aligned with that. And it's like invigorating. And it's not easy, obviously. We talk about it every day, Brian. Right? We talked about it today. But that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. And I'm unbelievably grateful for it, I must say. What say you, Josh? You still with us? You didn't disappear again,
Yeah.
did you?
No, I'm here. This idea, it's an interesting one. This idea of locus of control. Like, do I have an external locus of control or do I have an internal locus of control? I think it's both in so many respects. I love what Brian was sharing of this idea of like we need to look inward. We need to look at ourselves because if I try to go outside of myself and I try to like fix the world because it's triggering me and I try to just, I don't know, bubble wrap every sharp corner in the universe so that I never bump into anything and I never have to feel anything. Like I think we all know that that doesn't work, right? I can't prepare the world for me. I can prepare me for the world. So there's a part of that piece of like I need to go inside. I need to be able to see what are the wounds that I still carry, what are the things that still ache within me, and can I right those things first before expanding my sort of sphere of influence outwardly. And we see this like when we talk about archetypes, the sovereign archetype, the king archetype. The first level of that is, can you put your life in order, like your personal life and your emotions, and utilize the resources you have available to you, then spread that out to your relationship, then spread that out to your family, then your community, then the world. It expands outward. But I think the other side of that is that it's not to say we shouldn't attend to our environment or our social circle or the types of settings that we put ourselves in. And like what we're talking about here, community. It's like surrounding myself with men who are aspiring to greatness inspires me. That's going to be a quality of this. We talk about like upgrading your social circle and like you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. Like our environment matters. If I constantly put myself in situations that don't ask a lot of me, that allow me to kind of phone it in and I'm not really called to my highest, then I don't really have anything to aim for. It's not very inspiring. So the environment matters, but the source always comes back to me. I'm always the sort of highest authority in my own life. I'm the one who has to take the most accountability, be the most responsible.
Yeah. It's one of the things for me that's been big on my mind lately is trying to be more intentional with everything that I do and maintain presence and be in the moment with things. And it's so easy to shift away from that. But I feel like I'm flooded with hyper awareness, and I'm just now learning how to turn that awareness into action. And I'm seeing such a huge improvement in my day to day with everything that I'm doing by trying to be more present. And I want to talk a little bit about some tools that people can use, because a lot of this stuff can be very overwhelming. If you're having a hard time in life and you're feeling it and you're kind of at rock bottom, everything could be overwhelming. So there's some things that people can start doing in their day to day to ease into this. And one of the things for me that's been really big has been breath work. And I found that when I incorporate that daily into my life, maybe only 10 minutes, doesn't have to be long. I've had a huge positive impact from doing that. And then maintaining the consistency has always been an issue. But again, going back to this idea of intention, purpose, that helps drive the activity. Right, guys?
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense, Jeremy. And like we talk about all the time, like intention is paramount to growth. And all personal growth work starts with intention, right? And it's an intention to be a better man, whatever your intention is. And we talk about intention with the plant medicine ceremonies, right? You can go to these ceremonies just winging it, no intention. You can take these medicines, you can have these visions and these insights, but without a true north and a direction as to why you're there and where are you going, it's just an experience. And that's when it takes going back to these simple practices in our day-to-day life that helps to cultivate, our own personal power. In a world that likes to take our power away, right? We look inside and we find our north and we find our light and we find our intention for what's our purpose for being here, right? We start with that.
Yep. So,
Yeah, I think
go ahead, Josh.
I think intention kind of dictates how well these tools work as well. Like at one of the P3 workshop that I do, one of the first things we start with is this concept of protection versus learning. And it's a decision making process of, am I doing this to create distance with myself or my emotions or how I feel, or am I doing this to get closer to myself, to my emotions, to feel more, to have more insight? And sometimes in those two lists, that as we make those things of like, is this an act of protection or an act of learning, the same thing can occur on both lists based on the intention. Some people can use food to nourish themselves, and them taking care of themselves and remembering to eat and remembering to like balance their diet and focus on that is an act of learning. It's an act of them taking better care of themselves and nourishing their body. Whereas for other people, they could take it to a place of control. And actually, this is the way that I just feel like I can lasso the universe a little bit and feel like I can quell some of my anxiety, but it's not really allowing me to stretch or grow in some way. I think psychedelics are like this. I think breathwork can be like this. Anything that changes or alters our state, if we don't have a clear intention of like, this is aiming me in some medicinal fashion towards something that is going to allow me to grow, expand, increase insight, increase awareness and wisdom, then it can ultimately become something that is, if not just sort of escapism, it can actually be sort of poisonous in some ways. Like the difference between medicine and poison is the dosage, right? So like I think the intention part of it matters as well. It's like, why am I doing this right now? Why am I going out for a run? Am I doing it because I just don't want to think about the struggles that I'm having in my current relationship? Is it because I want to avoid some things, or is it because I'm trying to connect with my body and lean towards something? Which, if I had to simplify the whole process, that's the thing I think helps me the most is, am I running away from something or am I running towards something? Am I doing this to avoid, push away from, get away from, like, or am I seeking something? And even that is a tricky question because I have parts of me that are pretty deceptive and they're like, yeah, I'm totally seeking comfort. That's why I want to eat this bowl of pasta. It's like, I'm probably not seeking. I'm seeking to soothe myself. Why? Because I'm feeling anxious, because I don't want to feel the unrest. I don't want to feel the frazzled, frenetic energy that I've been carrying all week because I haven't really processed what happened at work yesterday.
Oh yeah, a bowl of pasta. Run towards the roar, Josh.
Run toward the linguine.
Run toward the linguine. Okay, so breathwork, other tools, meditation, journaling. Brian, what sorts of rituals have you installed in your day to day that have been have had a profound impact on your well being?
I would say in the very beginning of my journey, the most important ritual I always did was prayer meditation. I'd wake up in the morning. I would set my intentions for the day. I would say a prayer to Creator, asking for support and guidance and direction. And that right there helps me have a true north. It helps me dial in my day, right? And I carry these rituals into my ceremonies, to my workshops, to my retreats, to my relationship with my fiance and my daughter. It really helps me, connect with myself, connect with something bigger than myself, right? And it allows me to know where I'm going, to know my purpose for that moment. So I would say prayer and meditation are big for me. Exercise is also very big in my life. Exercise for me helps me stay present. When I exercise with intention to feel good, to get my health good, for longevity, for flexibility. that really helps me stay connected with myself as well.
Yep. Movement is key. I really loved what we did on the last retreat in the morning. I can't remember, the Qigong was it called, right? Qigong. Yeah, that intentional movement, right? Moving the energy around in the morning. I thought that was a very powerful exercise. Anyway. So, gentlemen, how we doing?
Good.
Fantastic.
Anyone have anything they want to say before I jump to the next topic of discussion?
Yeah,
What
I'd
I want
like
to say to the newcomers is that, you know, when you first begin this journey, like try many different modalities and see which one fits for you.
Yeah, I think
right.
a really good resource for that is Jamie Wheel's book, Recapture the Rapture. There's a whole section in that book called The Alchemist Cookbook, where he goes sort of like from research perspective, what are the different things that help people transform? And so he goes over psychedelics, he goes over embodiment practices, sexuality, music, you know, uh, like it just everything that's about like embodying the you know every sort of aspect of human potentiality and transforming it in some way. And he does this thing with a matrix where he talks about sort of like from mild to spicy. So, like, from a sexual standpoint of like embodying your sexuality, well, part of the mild part of that might just be allowing yourself to have, you know, good like intimacy with your partner. Whereas super spicy is like join a BDSM community and see what comes about from that process. You know, for psychedelics, it could be engaging in something like breath work or going all the way up to doing an ayahuasca ceremony. So you get to sort of dictate how risk averse are you and what level with each of these tools you want to dive into so you can see what wakes up in you and what sort of gets activated so that you can kind of move the dial one piece at a time.
Are you guys hearing that insane feedback loop or static, or is that just me?
It
Well,
sounds like
you may
lawn
be
mowing.
hearing a lawnmower that's about to come behind me, so I have my apologies.
I thought we were getting ready for takeoff, dude. Jesus.
I'll go inside, it's too much.
Don't they know we're in here trying to record? Come on.
It's the opposition, Jeremy, the opposition.
The opposition. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Okay.
You know what I love for you, Jeremy? Share with us how music has helped you. You know, because it seems like music is really your calling,
Yeah.
it's your passion, it's your purpose. We've seen you grow, we've seen you learn. We saw you go to this workshop in Nashville earlier this year, and we're watching you just explode and light up. Like your passion for life has just exponentially just exploded over the last 3 or 4 months.
It's an interesting one because like with anything else, I'm constantly pulled from day to day by the dark, mysterious forces of self-doubt and all that bullshit. And it's like, I know that I'm making progress. Like I know it because not only am I now like playing in front of others and singing, which I never did before, but like when I record myself, I can hear improvement, right? It's not perfect. It's not fucking fantastic, but I know I'm making progress. But I'm with my father yesterday and I played a song that I recorded in the car and the intro guitar part came out. It was Hotel California. And I played it and he started drumming to the intro part and then I started singing and it wasn't my best recording or whatever. And he's like, ooh, he goes, that's not the best really. And in the past, I would have taken that and it would have been like a dagger to my heart. It would have been like, oh, I suck. I'm no good. Yeah. But that feeling is getting softer and softer, right? Like I'm actually like my reaction to that is so much less triggering now. It's like, okay, good. That's his opinion of it. But like, I know that I'm making progress and I know that it's getting better. And I know that the work I'm putting in is leading me somewhere. So it's like, all right, I take it with a grain of salt now. And I just continue going along this process. And obviously, like anything else, the more you do of it, the more you put yourself in that uncomfortable situation. If you have a problem expressing yourself in front of others, for me, playing and singing in front of others is very, very difficult. The only way to get past that is just to continually put myself in that situation and build that muscle. And I'm making tremendous progress. Yet every day my mind still tells me that old shadow self still tells me, are you good enough? Can you really do this? Maybe you just suck. And it's like, no, like, I appreciate where you're coming from, brother. Thank you for trying to show me whatever it is you're trying to show me. But I've become a lot better at really not silencing that voice, but downplaying the impact of that voice that it has on me and my ability to move forward. And I'm really blessed to be in a position where I can share the music and the creativity. And that's really where I'm at my happiest, where I'm expressing myself freely, without concern for those around me and whether or not they like it or don't like it. So still part of the journey, and I'm walking the line every day, brothers. Oh yes.
Yeah, I think that's the point, though, is that this idea around healing, I hear so often. I used to have this all the time, is that something about healing always felt linear to me. It was like I'm just moving toward this finish line, and eventually one day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be like, I've
Yes.
arrived, and I'm
Yes.
no longer going to get triggered by anything, and it's no longer going to bother me. And I'm not even going to touch the ground when I walk. I'm going to float around just like this enlightened being. And that's just not accurate. It's like there's constant awareness about this stuff, and really highlighting the point that, like, you can have this interaction with your father where he says probably what I'm guessing is the same thing that he would normally say. Oh, that's not perfect, and like them some sort of judgment or assessment of you, where that could have easily in the past spiraled you into see, another piece of evidence to support the idea that I'm not good enough and that I shouldn't be doing this. And that's the growth, is like, wow, I can now see this for what it is. This is your assessment, this is your judgment, this is your need for perfectionism, or whatever the case may be, and that's not what I grade myself on. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. And can I find new pieces of evidence to support that I'm actually exactly where I want to be, and I'm moving in the direction that I want to, and that path is constantly evolving, and our perspective and our awareness is always going to be on this edge of like, wow, and I finally realized. Like, I can remember the first time I started really doing this work when I was like in my early 20s. And at the time I thought, I finally understand like all the ways in which I was screwing up my life. And like, it's all going to be different now. Now I know. And then I turned 30 and I was like, holy shit, I didn't know fucking
Yeah.
anything when I was in my 20s. Now I know. Now I'm just so, it's so clear to me. I'm 41. I'm like, this is the moment, guys. No, seriously. This is the time where I figured it all out. And I think that's a part of the journey, is this constant rediscovery of who we are and how we touch the world and how it reflects back to us. There's something really profoundly beautiful to me in that it's never ending. It's this recursive upward spiral that we're constantly adding to at any given moment.
I love that, man. Healing is not linear, right? We all think that we're going to get there one day, and there is nowhere to get. It's a lifelong journey of ups and downs. It's called being human.
And I love the analogy that healing is actually a spiral. And it's a spiral. We continue to come back to the same place, to the same lesson over and over and over again, with more awareness, with more tools, hopefully with more compassion and more love for ourselves, and then we're able to move past these things and not give them so much of a charge. Example, right now, old Brian would have gone outside, taken the lawnmower and smacked this guy over the head. But I understand he's just doing his job. He didn't know I'm having a podcast right now. He doesn't know that what we're talking about may save somebody else's life. So now I'm able to kind of sit here in this lesson and say, I can have compassion. He's just doing his job. And it trickles out.
Indeed. Brian, your audio is a little low. Can you turn up volume at all?
Sure.
I want to share something that happened yesterday, which I thought was pretty profound. So I was having a discussion with the old wife. I won't get into the particulars. I don't want to bore anybody with that, but she brought up a conversation. I talked to you about this earlier, Brian, about money. It was something to do with money. And it was the thing that she said triggered me to my core in that it like challenged in my mind in that moment. It challenged like my thought of like trust with her, and like it just hit me like really, really hard, and I felt fucking like viscerally offended by what had happened. And I froze up and I couldn't like have the conversation. I was like, listen, look, I felt I told her how I felt from that. I was like, I need some time. I need some space. I need to process this. And we talked about this too on the last podcast, Josh, about like processing the emotion before you actually respond. And like what I said to her in that moment, I was like impressed by actually what I said to her, how I formulated this. I was like, listen, like, you know what, Margie? I said, like, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. Like I might be wrong. My reaction to this, maybe it's wrong. Like, I don't know right now because I have an emotional trigger that's like clouding my judgment. And I can't process this right now. So like, can I just take some time and like, I will get back to you with this and we'll discuss the issue. I have to diffuse myself before I go into this because like, I don't know if I'm right or wrong here. And she's like, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, okay. And she's like, but do make sure you come back to me with this. Like, don't forget about it. Like you always have in the past. I was like, oh, fuck yes. I put a reminder on my phone. I was like, I don't know. And I thought about it later. And I was like, was it really that bad what she said? I don't think so. Like it really wasn't. But in the moment, because of the emotion, it felt like she was attacking my soul and my character and everything I am as a person. It was like, how could you possibly make a rational conversation, a rational thought process in that state? So I thought it was really profound that I had that. And again, that just speaks to the progress that I've made in the work that I'm doing.
And the growth and the spiral.
Yes. All right, you two keep talking for a minute. I got to get some more water here.
Sure. So Josh, this weekend, I'm really excited to share with you. We're doing, my mentor's in town from Brazil.
Yeah.
Leroy Tezzi's coming to town this Friday, and we're going to be doing the Universal Shamanism Flight of the Eagle ayahuasca ceremony this weekend. And it's probably the biggest event I've been a part of. For a number of reasons. The very first reason is I've been teaching his workshop over the last 8 months. And this event, I'm bringing 8 men with me for my workshop. We're bringing 2 men from the men's retreat. So I think there's 12 guys coming with me this event. And that just it speaks for itself about what we're doing and how important this work is, and more importantly, how much this type of work really works. You know, and it's such a blessing. Jeremy's coming as well with his wife Margie, right? And it's such a blessing to see all of these people gathering in ceremony, in ritual, you know, studying these indigenous teachings, you know, and bringing this embodiment back into our lives, into ourselves. And it's such an honor to watch everybody's lights turn on, right? To watch their zest for life just pump up. You know, I watched Jeremy grab his guitar in the morning after the ceremony and play his music. I'm gonna grab my drum with Stephanie, my fiance. You know, and it's this part of ritual and community and transformation that I just cannot get enough of. And I am fired up for this weekend.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's going to be an experience. That's for sure. Yeah. There's something about, you know me, Brian, something about being at ceremony around the fire and then getting into it and picking up and just getting into the music and really just detaching from everything and getting into that flow state. And I kind of found it the last retreat we went on where we were playing some music, and one of the brothers afterwards said they were looking at me playing and they could see how I was just like in it. And it was just flowing and it was just coming out of me. And I strive to get to that state where I could just not worry about what it sounds like, not worry about what people think about what it sounds like, and just express myself fully. And when you do that, ironically enough, that's when the magic happens. And that's when it starts sounding good.
Yeah, I think Josh, you can relate to this in your workshops that you do. You know, and I'll tell you, you know, honestly, like the P3 workshop that I did with you a couple of years ago was paramount in my transformational journey. I really think it should be almost mandatory for those of us on this path of awakening and parts work and emotional intelligence. And it was a missing piece in my journey. So I'm curious, you know, what's your experience when you work with these workshops, when you're facilitating, you know, as you notice yourself grow and you're noticing, you know, the people around you really just to soak up this love and this wisdom that you're offering.
It almost feels like an understatement to call it beautiful. I think I resonate with this feeling that you just described, Jeremy, this idea of like entering into these flow like experiences. There's moments in ceremony, there's moments in workshops like that where I don't know what I'm going to say, I don't know what I'm going to do, but there's an innate intrinsic trust in like whatever's about to happen happens. It all just turns into sort of muscle memory and an unfolding of what's going to happen. Um, but there's also, I think there's something really beautiful about these workshops, ceremonies, what we do at P3 that is about creating a container. There's a structure associated with it. There's rules that we have to follow in terms of like, let's set up the space, let's make sure there's safety and confidentiality and things of that nature. And then once that setting is set up, allowing whatever needs to happen. We have this saying when I teach facilitators how to do this work, or one of our phrases is you stick to the schedule until something better shows up. So create your schedule and you create your itinerary, and we have, okay, we're going to do this exercise at this time, and then this is going to take place next, and then we're going to go to lunch, and then this is going to happen. It's like, that's all fantastic, and that adds structure. It adds you a framework for you to build on. But then as a facilitator of these spaces, knowing at some point, some real human thing is going to happen. Some emotion is going to emerge, or there's going to be some energy in the room that comes alive. And it's our job to get the fuck out of the way when that happens, to let that happen, to let that emerge. There's been workshops I've been in that on like first morning we're there, the entire room erupts into like this rage around something that is happening in the world or a common theme that people are feeling. And it'd be ridiculous for me as the facilitator to be like, hey guys, let's put a cap on this because this isn't the time for that. We have anger scheduled at 2 and it's 10, so could we just table, like, it would be interrupting a very like alive organic thing. And I think that's the hardest part of these spaces, is surrendering to that. It's almost, I don't want to sound too woo-woo about this, but there's just like a greater wisdom in the room than anything that I ever fucking possess. There's something else alive in there. And that's part of the beauty, going back to where we started, the beauty of when people come together, when communities happen, when groups congregate with a common intention. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. There's something extra in the room that conspires for the entire group's benefit, and allowing that to happen, creating the conditions so that that fire can sort of take hold and letting it burn when it shows up. um yeah, there's just no more rewarding work that I get to do in my life other than that.
Let's use that as a bridge to talk more about vulnerability and vulnerability as strength, because I think we're taught through society, through our whole lives, to not be vulnerable, right? You're going to get taken advantage of, you're going to get used and abused. And, that might be true to some degree in the world that we live in. But I think the majority of people out there truly appreciate vulnerability and authenticity more so than we think they do.
Absolutely.
And I think the more you open up and the more you let your guard down and take away your masks, the more that really resonates with people. Like people like to be around authenticity. And I think that's probably one of the main driving factors behind what you just described, Josh, with these large P3 groups, right? The ability for these large groups of people to get together and take their masks off and really like let go of everything that's inside them. And like you said, it does bring another element, right? Like another component that is materialized seemingly out of thin air through people letting their guard down and opening up together in that group. It's like this intangible thing that comes up, and it's just so powerful. And the other side of that is strength, is it not?
Yeah. I think it's strength to express it to begin with, and vulnerability. Vulnerability precedes trust. Like if someone's willing to get vulnerable in a space, they're creating the conditions for trust and connection to happen. Yeah, I think one of the worst things I ever heard in a workshop, like, was this association of, we started opening up and we started, people are sharing their own stuff and they're sharing very vulnerable stories. And someone was like, "Isn't this just trauma bonding?" And I'm like, first off, that term does not mean that. Like, trauma bonding is a whole like narcissistic abuse pattern that happens in a completely different context. But this is the association that some people have, is like sharing trauma is trauma bonding. It's like, no, this isn't a negative thing. Sharing our experiences with each other is telling the other person, I trust you enough to take off the armor,
Mm.
that I don't feel like I'm in danger around you, that if I reveal my true self, you're not going to take a swing at me. But the other part of this too is like, our internal perception of what vulnerability looks and feels like is very different from what we experience from others. And this is another reason why groups are helpful. A lot of times at the P3 workshop or other settings that I'm in, anytime somebody gets vulnerable, I'll usually address this, especially if I heard it in the workshop. It's like, let's just say Dave just got really vulnerable, opened up about something that he's just been holding on his heart for a long time. We'll say, how many people in the room have this internal feeling that vulnerability is weakness? That if I open myself up, that feels weak to me. And I'll ask just like a show of hands. Most everyone in the room raises their hand to this. Because most people have this sense of like, if I show that I'm struggling with something, that feels like weakness. That feels like a lack of perfection or impermeability that I need to convey all the time. And then I'll ask the follow-up question: how many people feel like Dave was just being weak? Like, not a single hand goes up. It's like, why not? Why is he held to a different standard than the rest of you? Why is he okay with this? Why did that feel courageous? Why did that feel powerful? And it's like, well, it was bold and it was power, like it looked like strength. And it's like, this incongruence that we have is, I think, a part of the reason why we struggle with our own authenticity and our own vulnerability. Is that when it's coming from us, it feels like a character flaw. It feels like something we didn't adequately attend to or fix or polish up in a nice way that left no cracks. But I think that as a human condition, when we see people be bold and be real and be vulnerable and like share a fucking truth about who they are, we're naturally inspired by that stuff. And it sets a high watermark for like, wow, you got that vulnerable. You were that courageous. Maybe I could be at least that courageous. Maybe I could match your level. Maybe I can even exceed it. Let's test what this space, what this community can actually handle. How real can we actually be? And can we set down some of the masks we've been carrying around all this time?
Mm. A moment of silence for our wonderful group. It's all about balance, my friends. It's all about balance. Yes. Still with us, Brian?
I'm still here. I'm thinking about vulnerability actually, and I'm thinking about when I first started this journey. I really started to open up to Josh and to other close friends of mine and to my support group. Vulnerability felt very scary.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very uncomfortable. I felt naked. And at that point in my life, I was so used to wearing this armor that I really didn't even know who I was underneath the armor. So it was in becoming vulnerable that I really found myself. And I always go back to my childhood. I was raised with a father who never showed emotions. He never showed vulnerability. He showed anger. He showed control. He showed rage. So I knew that very well. What I did not know was softness, was courage, was strength, was honesty, right? Was feelings. I felt like when I really dove into my emotional world, when I was 40, I was a baby. I was an emotional baby. I like to think now I'm in like maybe kindergarten, so at least I'm going somewhere. But I really think that like as we continue to elevate as a species, as a global community, I think vulnerability is going to be paramount in our connection, in our growth, in our success, in our wealth, in our health, in our healing. So I really think that the vulnerability is what makes us human. And like you said, Josh, it makes us relatable. And I know in my relationships, in my intimate relationships, right? It's like I don't want to see, sadness or fear or tears, but it helps me connect with the other person. and that's important because I like to connect. So I know for me, I'm going to continue to be as vulnerable as I can.
So we all know how difficult this work can be and how we constantly can get pulled back away from it. What are some, I'll ask each of you this, start with you, Josh. What are some tools or tricks that you use in your own life that help you kind of reset yourself back to baseline when you feel like you're being pulled away?
I think some of the things that we've stated already, for me, meditation feels huge. But for me, meditation isn't clearing
So
my
we
mind or not
alluded, we
thinking
mentioned
about anything.
meditation. We didn't really go into specifically how we utilize it and how it works for you. So elaborate, please.
Yeah, meditation for me is oftentimes getting connected with myself. It's not just eliminate all thought and try to find that like blissful space where the mind is not running. That can be it sometimes where I just need to like ground myself, but most of the time for me, going into meditation is about exploring my different parts, having a conversation with them, seeing what parts are alive, which ones need something, which ones have I been neglecting, and just, sort of, running myself rampant with productivity and not slowing down enough to actually listen to sort of the little kids inside of me that are still like, hey, we're not doing okay and things aren't well. Sometimes meditation is getting quiet enough that I can hear the sound of my body telling me what it's not enjoying or where it needs movement or something along those lines. So, like before I do my workshops, every single time I facilitate, the day of, I will listen to a visualization by Sarah Blondin, who's on like Insight Timer and stuff. She has a bunch of them, but they're all like really emotionally deep. And the reason I do that is because I know one of those is going to make me cry. And for me, I know if I can get to a place where I have emotional expression enough that there are tears on my face, I'm at least like allowing my emotions to breathe a bit. I'm allowing them to flow. And I just know that for myself. If I haven't cried in the last 3 days, I'm not really attending to my emotions properly. And not crying out of sadness either. It could be out of gratitude. It could be out of awe for the entirety of the universe. But I know that that emotional expression is a way that keeps me. It feels like stretching. It's like I got to limber up the emotions, make sure that they don't get too stagnant, too calcified in the way that I'm being, so that I can actually move into that. So I use meditation to get there a lot of times, or I'll lean into an emotion or some kind of journaling exercise. But all of it is about this common theme of connection. Like I need to reconnect with myself. It's very, very easy for me to dissociate and check out and like be living in my head too much and those like sort of managerial parts that I have. I got to dial it back in, get in touch with my core, what's alive in me, what has some unexpressed emotion, and see if I can let some of that out right now.
Yeah. All right, boys. I know, Josh, you have a hard stop coming up, right? You got to get back to another meeting pretty soon, so I think we could wrap this up shortly. Yes.
Yep.
Brian, any final thoughts? Last words?
I just wanted to share that the one tool that I always fall back on to connect with myself is surfing.
Is what?
Surfing.
Yeah.
Surfing. I began surfing when I was very young, a very young boy, and it's one tool that I can always count on that will bring me back to myself. So on this journey, and I know Josh, you'd even told me, and when I call you up and I say, man, I'm forgetting who I am. Your advice is go surfing, Brian. Go surfing. So this morning before the podcast, I went surfing.
Yep. As did I with running. That's one for me. That's become an integral part of my life. I find that any day that I can wake up in the morning and first thing I do is strap on my shoes and head out and do a couple miles. I feel like I already got a win for the day, and it's always positive. So we'll leave with that. Everyone out there, thanks so much for tuning in. If anything that we said throughout this conversation resonated with you, we'd love to hear about it. We'd love to hear your feedback. Let us know in the comments. If you're looking to get involved with the work that we're doing, please reach out to us. There'll be contact information in the description below. We are looking to build this community far and wide and continue doing this work. So we are very, very grateful and blessed to have you along for this journey. Josh, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today on this this beautiful podcast episode that we did. I love it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to Microdose the Mind. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend and help us spread the word about the magic of microdosing. Be sure to follow us on social media for all the latest updates and insights. And remember, while we love our tiny doses, sometimes you just need to go big. Just make sure you're in the right set and setting. Until next time, keep your mind open and ready for growth.